In this video, we're going to animate and trigger our safe to open. Check out how to use the animation system in Unity in this week's file-based breakdown. Hey guys, I'm John with gamedev HQ, and if you're new to this channel, we create 3 videos every week focused around coding, level design, and best of Unity content. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the action. If you're interested in becoming a member of gamedev HQ to follow along with this tutorial, you can find instructions in the description below. So here we are in Unity. I've already imported from our file base the safe game asset that we're going to be working with. And if we take a look at the safe here, you will notice here that we have the safe parent object, and then here we have the safe door and the safe handle. Now these are individual objects because we can actually animate these objects. For example, on the safe handle, if I want to rotate this, we can. We can rotate the handle along the Z-axis. And if we take a look at the door here, we can rotate it along the Y-axis. Now you'll see here that it's not opening correctly. And the reason for that is because we need to make sure we're rotating not along the center of the object, but the pivot of the object. So at the top here, we have this little toolbar here for center, and we can toggle it between the rotation or the handle position of the object. And I want to make sure that we're rotating along the pivot of the object, and that's going to allow us to actually open this door. So what we need to do now is we're actually going to go ahead and animate this. Alright, so I'm going to set the animation here, the rotation to 0. And the first thing we need to do when creating an animation is we need to have the object selected that we want to animate. So as a whole, I want to animate the safe, so I'm going to select the parent object here. This top level object is just a container. So here is the safe. I'm going to go to Window, Animation, and select Animation. That's going to bring up the animation window. And we're going to create a new animation for our safe. And we're going to call this spinning handle. So the first thing we're going to animate is our spinning handle. I'm just going to save that animation inside of our animations folder. Now that we have that saved, we can actually begin recording keyframes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hop into record mode, and I could key the very first frame and the last frame, but instead I'm actually just going to move us to the 5-second mark. And then I'm going to select the actual safe handle, and I'm going to do a full 360-degree rotation. Right now it's at 0. I'm going to say the end result is 360. It's automatically going to create the first frame from 0 to 360. And if we actually play this back, you'll see here that it's rotating for us. So what I can do now is it's going to run at 60 frames per second. I'm going to set that to about 6 frames per second. And if we actually get out of record mode and play this, we have a spinning dial. So what we're going to do is we're going to spin these handles, and then we're going to open the door. So what I need to do now is create that open door animation. So I'm going to select my spinning handle, and we're going to create a new clip for the door. So we have spinning handle, and then here we have open door. And for the open door, we're going to hop into record mode. So select the safe, hop into record mode, and then here let's select our door, and we're just going to start at 0 on the Y. So let's get out of record mode and set it to 0. Okay. Go back into record mode, go to 5 seconds in. I want the end position to be -90 degrees. And if we play that back at 6 frames per second, we can see here that we now have our door animation. The next thing here is to determine the sequence of events here. So in order to do this, we need to create visual logic using the animator view to actually trigger the animation through code, but also to actually tell it after it's done playing the handle animation to open the door. So to do this, we need to hop into the animator window. To open the animator window, we're going to select our safe, and you'll see here that an animator component was attached with a controller called safe. If you double click that, the animator window will open, and you'll see all of the clips that make up our safe inside of it. Now, right now, if we just run this, this is highlighted orange, so it's automatically going to play that animation, and it's going to loop. By default, any animation we create in the inspector is just going to loop. So what we need to do is we need to select the open door animation and make sure loop time is false. Select the spinning handle, make sure loop time is false. Next, what we can do is we can actually create transition logic. So spinning handle, I can say make transition to go to open door as soon as it's done playing. If I go ahead and run this, you'll see here that's going to play the spinning handle, and as soon as it's finished, open the door. What we want to do though is trigger this through code, for example, say when I hit the space key. So the way we do this is through the use of what's called parameters. Inside the animator window, you can see here that we have parameters, and I can hit this plus icon and we can use these parameters to trigger different events through code. So what I'm going to do is create a trigger event that's basically just going to call the simulation of opening the vault or the safe. So here we'll say open safe, and when that's triggered, we're going to play the spinning handle animation, then go to the open door. It's all going to happen through that trigger. So what we need to do though, to prevent this from playing from the start, is we need to create an empty state by right-clicking and selecting empty. We can rename this to empty, and then we can set that to the default layer. Now we can tell it to move by transition to the spinning handle, but when? If we select that transition, you'll see here in the conditions property that we can actually add a transition, open safe. If I wanted to simulate this in the inspector, we can. Right now, nothing's happening, but as soon as I hit this open safe button, our safe now opens. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna trigger that through code. So to do this, let's close our animations here. We're gonna create a new C# script, and let's call this safe. Open that in Visual Studio. And the first thing that we need to do here is we need to get a reference to the animator component that controls this transitional logic. We need a reference to the animator component of the safe. In order to get that, we have to create a variable that of type animator, and then we can assign it in void start or through the inspector. But what we need here is a reference to that component so that I can say, hey, let's trigger the open safe and it will play those animations. The next thing we want to do here is we are checking for if I hit the space key, then we're going to trigger the animation. So before we can trigger the animation, we need to know about the animation. That animation lives inside of this safe's animator component, which has the controller with all the animation clips. So we need a reference to that animator. So before we get started, I'm going to take my safe script and I'm going to attach it to our safe game object so that the script is on the same level as our animator component. Let's open the script and let's create our reference. To do that, we can create a private variable of type animator. This is going to store a reference to our animator component attached to the safe. We'll go ahead and call this _anim. We have two options here. To assign this reference, we can do it in the inspector by adding a serialized field attribute so that we can see it in the inspector. And if you're wondering why this is a private variable, it's so that another class can't change the value of this reference component. By adding a serialized field attribute, it becomes visible in the inspector. If we look at our safe once Unity compiles, you can see here that it's looking for an animator component as a reference. I can simply drag in our safe game object to assign it directly in the inspector. And that's going to attach our animator component. Alternatively, we can do the same operation at runtime by accessing our anim reference and assigning it the component of type animator using getComponent. Here, we pass in the component it's looking for, and now we assigned it at runtime. So as soon as I hit start, it's going to grab the component off of the game object the script is on and assign it there. The next thing we can do is we can check for user input if we hit the space key. So that's going to be if we hit the space key using an if statement. And here, if input.getKeyDown, we're checking for the space key. And if we hit the space key, what we're going to do is trigger that animation through the reference, anim, and then there's a method in here called setTrigger. And you'll see here that we have two options. We have int ID as well as a string name. If we use the name property, it's asking for a trigger name. That trigger name matches the parameter name that we created in our animator view called openSafe. So if I pass in here, openSafe, it's going to trigger that parameter and play our open door animation when I hit the space key. We can save our script, head back into Unity, and hit play. Here we are, and you can see here that as soon as I hit the space key, we have our animation. Now you'll notice there that there was a delay, and that delay comes from something called hasExitTime. If I select our transition here, you'll see here that it has hasExitTime checked. If I uncheck that, it will be more responsive. HasExitTime means that the animation must finish playing before moving on to the next animation. When a hasExitTime is checked to false, it means that we can interrupt any current animation and instantly play our spinning handle. So it doesn't matter where we are in the empty state, it will instantly transition as soon as I hit the space key. Just like that. And there we go. We've successfully animated and triggered the animation through code on this safe. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in grabbing this game asset off Filebase, the link is in the description. Thank you to all of our awesome Plus and Pro members. You guys rock. See you next week.